by woodworkers. So I'm going to talk a little bit about using your water stones to prepare a card scraper. This one is fresh out of the package. I just wiped the oil off of it. In the previous video, you saw how I used the file to remove the existing burr. It came from the factory with a slight burr, but I wanted to get rid of that before I take it to my water stones. I don't want that burr cutting a trough in my stone. It shouldn't be too severe, but I like to get rid of it first. So my first step is I'm going to actually polish just these edges. I'm not going to take and run this entire thing across my 1000 grit stone. That's just going to be a waste of my time. If I get to a point where I've sharpened this card scraper so much that I go past where I've already flattened, I just go back to the stone and flatten a little bit further. So this is just my 1000 grit, and I'm just going to take and place my fingers so that there's fairly consistent pressure all the way across. It is a little awkward if you want to take a block of wood or something and push down on that to give yourself nice even pressure. You can do that. I'm going to get these guys out of the way. And I'm just going to run this back and forth on my stones. Until I get a nice consistent scratch pattern. All the way across that cutting edge. Like I said, I'm not concerned about flattening it all the way into the middle of the stone or into the middle of the card. I'm more focused on this cutting edge. As long as it's flat there, I'm a pretty happy camper. I'm going to keep going for a couple more seconds and then just do it on all 4 of my cutting edges. I'm not sure how well this is going to show up in the camera, but you can see that I've got kind of the stones removing material here, but I have a nice consistent scratch pattern from the stone all the way across my cutting edge. I might want to take it in just a little bit further than I have. I think there was some lacquer or some other type of protective coating on this, so I think I'm just scratching through that right now. So I'm going to go a couple more seconds and then move on to the other 3 edges. My right hand is not actually lifting up on the card. It's very tempting if I have my fingers under here and I pinch it to lift. And then I'm just creating a rolled edge, and I'm never going to be able to get this card scraper to do anything I want it to do. It's kind of just guiding where it's going. These fingers are not pressing down. I'm not white knuckling anything. I'm just trying to hold it on the stone. So you don't want to jam this into the sharpening stone. Like with any flattening you do, the harder you push, the faster you're going to wear away your stone, and the sooner you're going to have to go and flatten it. You're not actually making progress faster. May need to go a couple more seconds, but you get the idea. I'll come back once I get the other sides flattened, and we'll move on to the next step. All right, so now I've gotten the card on all 4 cutting edges that I'm going to be sharpening. I've got it at least flat with my 1000 grit. I'm now going to go up to my 4000 grit. It's the same process, just running it back and forth. Once I'm done with the 4000, I'm going to go to the 8000. That's going to provide my mirror polish on this. Not sure if we actually need that, but if I'm going to be spending the time going to the stones to get a nice fine edge, I want to have as nice of a cutting edge as I can. So I'm going to spend some more time on the sharpening stones, and when I'm ready to move on to the next stage, I'll be back. All right, woodworkers, I just grabbed another one of my card scrapers. I'm actually going to run a quick experiment. I've always just sharpened my card scrapers with just a file and a burnisher, and I've been pretty happy with the results. Generally, when I'm using a card scraper, I'm going to be going back and sanding afterwards. So I'm not super concerned with the surface quality so much as I just want its help to remove some of the dents and depressions that I've created in the milling process. So I'm going to leave one that I just used the file on the edge and created a burr. I'm then going to take this one to the 1000 grit stone and polish that edge. I'm going to take this one to the 4000, or through the grits to the 4000, and take this one all the way to 8000 and see if I get a distinguishable difference in the surface quality. This may change my mind. I may go back to my stones every time I sharpen my card scraper, or I may just continue the way I always have and use the file. So we shall see how this goes. So I'm going to start here with the 1000 grit. The sharpening with the file was covered in the previous video, so I'm not going to go over that again in this one. I'm just going to get the 1000 grit surface, I'm going to take a square block of wood and put my piece up against it, and I'm going to run both the card and the piece back and forth on my stone. I could try to run this all by eye. I highly doubt that I'm going to be very accurate with that. And I just want to keep going until I get rid of all of those file scratches, which, depending on how good I was with the file, may or may not take forever and a day. So I'm just going to keep going until I get a nice flat reference, and do that on the other two sides that I'm going to be sharpening. All right, a quick status update. I'm not going to lie, I've already been frustrated with just getting through the 1000 grit on the end. If I had a bigger reference block, I think I probably would be a little bit happier, but so far the process has kind of just annoyed me. I may be proven wrong, and it may be worth the frustration. That is still yet to be seen. So I'm going to go through and polish the 4000 side, and then go through the 8000, and I will be back soon. All right, so now that that process is out of the way, everything's been polished up to the grit that I wanted it, I'm going to take and use the burnisher and sharpen the card scraper like I normally would, just not touching the file. All of those surfaces have been prepped anyway, so I don't really need to worry about it. Burr feels pretty good. It feels about like one on the 1000 grit side. All right, so now that that's done, everything's sharpened, I'm going to scrape some wood and see if there's actually a difference. All of the burrs feel like they're the same as far as how aggressive they are. Let's see what we can do. I'm going to start with my file. Right file. This is 1,000. When I flip it over, I'll write the other ones and just see if I can compare the different surface quality. Right, there's the file, 1,000. I'm going to switch this around and actually, I think I was going against the grain with the file side. That seems a bit better. Well, if I'm going based off of feel, the file and the 1,000 feel about the same. Flip it over. Around. 4,000, 8,000. And finally, the 8,000. Ideally, I'd have this clamped down in the vise. Unfortunately, out here in the finishing room, I don't have a decent vise to clamp down into. So I'm just using bench cookies. All right. I'm going to point this up into some sort of raking light. I'm just using the lights up at on the ceiling and seeing if I can catch a different reflection from each surface. The 4,000 and the 8,000 look like pretty much exactly the same, as do the file and the 1,000 grit. So I don't see enough of a change. I can't feel much of a difference between the surface quality. I'm going to continue doing my sharpening the way I do my sharpening with the file. But if you want to, feel free to spend your time at the stones. It can't hurt anything. I just value my time more than having a perfectly scraped surface. Like I said earlier in the video, I'm always going to go and sand whatever surface I'm creating with this card scraper, just because that is my process. If your process is that you want to stop at a hand scraped surface, perfect, then I would spend a little bit more time in the surface prep part, which means going to the stones and fine tuning that edge.